Welcome to the Red to Black podcast, hosted by Werner Minchell, ex-Marine aviator and current real estate investor, and Mario Parzino, current Marine infantry officer and business investor. Awesome. So what are we discussing tonight?
We're going to talk about how to multiply generational wealth and kind of some steps to look at doing that. So you've got some sort of wealth that you've developed, or you've inherited, or you've cultivated, and how do we grow that wealth?
Okay, let's rock and roll, man. Let's go.
All right. So you want to start with, I think you wanted to open with a quote from Dave Collums.
Yeah. If you build something that lasts 50 years, you've created wealth. If you build something that lasts like 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you don't create any wealth. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so what I look for is I want to know that this thing's going to be around 300 years from now, or I want to have a high confidence that at least this land or this brand or some sort of this business is strong enough that it can potentially be around 300 years from now. And that eliminates a lot of crap. That really thins down your list of businesses you should be looking at. And you come down to kind of a pretty small, robust, durable brand that is potentially going to last 300 years, or at least the underlying business, the machinery or the land or something that you're going to buy is going to be around for quite a long. And it's weathered. You can see these kind of businesses, they've weathered a ton of storms.
So that's interesting. So talk to me more about a business and a storm.
Yeah, so in the good times, everybody can make money. When the economy is doing well, when consumers have money to spend, when businesses have money to spend, it's not too hard to turn a profit. You've got cost of goods sold, you get your expenses, and you usually grind out a profit. Even restaurants, even some really miserable businesses, the sheet steel business. I'm talking about some of the lowest margin businesses out there can turn a profit. Usually a restaurant, they make most of their sales on alcohol, and so they pay their staff, and they pay healthcare, and they pay their rent, and they upgrade the machinery, the kitchen. Every once in a while, and the owner makes a little tiny profit. And during the good times, restaurants do fine. Then the tide rolls out. What we're currently experiencing, being a little over a year into this pandemic, restaurants are suffering. People aren't going out. They're scared. They're in fear, and it's just not a robust business model. If you look at something like an Oracle or a storage business, let's go smaller. It's the same thing. You can do a physical storage business, or you can do a digital storage business. People don't take their belongings out of storage very often. Once they move in there, those units stay pretty full, and they tend to pay their rent because those belongings mean something to them. Same with the digital storage business. The Oracles, the SAPs, the Amazon Web Services, the Microsoft branded business applications that they sell and store data on. These companies have some sort of ability to weather storms that most restaurants or small businesses don't have, and we're seeing that. It's very evident in this pandemic.
So talk a little bit more about how you talked about the storage unit. You talked about Microsoft. Talk about how they're creating value such that they're able to weather that storm.
Yeah, so I would say the storage unit and the digital storage unit model are very similar, that there's high mental or physical switching costs, and that makes it able to kind of ride out some of the economic storms that we're going to all have to go through if you live long enough. So let's just take 30 units of storage. You got a little tiny, you got the mom and pop storage unit down the street from you, where people have a 10 by 10 storage locker. Once they move that physical property into that storage locker, you'll see this business. You'll see the advertisements for like $1 for the first month, like literally, like just pay $1. Put your credit card. We're going to charge your credit card $1 first month, and they know that the switching costs are pretty high. Once I raise the rents to $49 or $59 next month, you tend not to want to go back and load your pickup truck with all your stuff and move it down the street to save a few dollars. And the same is in these digital storage models, is that these companies have realized that it takes quite a bit. Once you get involved with one of them, it takes quite a bit of mental switching costs to move and migrate all your data over to a different company. And you're like, you know what? they raise the prices a little bit this year, or it's going to be the last bill we don't pay. We're gonna pay all of our. We're gonna try to keep working this business as hard as we can. But that's one of the first business decisions. You're like, hey, that we can cut other places, but we're not cutting our digital storage fees that we're paying.
So breaking down what you said, it's really interesting. You're looking at recurring revenue. Let's juxtapose two businesses. You have a restaurant business, you have a storage business. A restaurant business, basically every single day they're marketing, they're working to get a new customer. They're constantly working for that revenue.
That's right.
So they're constantly working. So the value there is not high because they're constantly working for it. Whereas a storage unit business, it's like a one-time fixed cost to get them in that door. And then once they get them in that door, now they have them for however long, a year, 2 years, and now there's a huge, because people are attached to their stuff. So now there's huge switching costs. So for people listening to this podcast, it's focusing on the things where it's like, people talk about when you sleep at night, you're making money. So you want a business where there's less stress. You get that customer, and he keeps paying you over the long term.
That's right. So it's almost like you're able to build a fence around your customers. Where a restaurant business, they come and go as they please. And when the economy starts slowing down, that's one of the first things people are going to cut. Is like, I'm not going to go out and drop $100 on dinner. I'm gonna retain that liquidity to probably save my house or save my business, and I'm not going to go spend it on a restaurant bill. And Jim Rickards says it really beautifully. He's like, when you finally do go out, so after the economy opens out, and you go out for Friday night dinner, and you go have the Italian feed, or you go to the French bistro, you don't order 2 dinners. You don't go backwards and say, well, I didn't go out last week, so this week I'm going to order 2 dinners. You just have one, and it's just a loss. That the economy has permanently lost that opportunity to sell you a dinner. You ate at home. It's a very, very difficult business, and people are attracted to it. There's some sort of mystique about restaurateurs. It's a high tempo business. There's something cool about it. If you do it right, there's something cool about it, but it's one of the most difficult businesses because there's no way to really build a fence around your customers. A storage unit, a 30 unit storage unit is a very unattractive business to most people, but it can weather economic storms much better than a restaurant.
Yeah, really, really interesting point. So why is this important? Because for any investors or potential investors listening, your goal, or what we're enrolling you in doing, is investing in businesses that just continue to pay you. And businesses that are going to do that more efficiently are going to be businesses that aren't day in, day out working on getting new customer, fixed costs. They have that fence. It's like you come in and you're there with that business for the long term. Those are phenomenal economies of scale. So as we're talking about the difference between restaurants and a storage business, how do you approach in terms of like blocking and tackling?
Excellent.
Like,
all right.
So day by day.
This is one of my favorite terms, is blocking and tackling. I stole this from the Marine Corps, and you'll hear this over and over again in football analogies in the Marine Corps. I don't know who originally stole it. Was it football stole it from the military, or the military stole it from the football? But blocking and tackling is simply brilliance in the basics. So in the military, what we do is we put HE on a target, so high explosive on a target, and we're putting another weapon system like direct fire on a target, and then we can maneuver. We have the ability, once the target is adequately suppressed, we have the ability to maneuver. In business, or in investing specifically, there's a couple key fundamentals that if you can master these, like 1 or 2 or 3 fundamentals, just be brilliant in the basics. Just be brilliant at mastering a couple of fundamentals. It basically provides you the opportunity to suppress targets and then maneuver on them. And I can run through those real quickly if you like.
Yeah, I'd like you to run through those, because there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that probably not familiar with a target. They understand what you're saying, but they don't get it at a level that impacts themselves. So yeah, would you please explain that?
Yeah, sure. So what we do, is we look what you and I are going to do together and show people this technique. But we look at a bunch of businesses. We try to evaluate as many businesses possible that are for sale or potentially for sale, and then we neck that down to a list of 5 or 10 businesses that we really are really interested. They're one, they're going to be for sale, or they are for sale, and two, they're really durable businesses. So we've got a list. We've already, in good times and bad times, we've already developed a list. And what we're doing from month in and month out is we're taking both our W-2 income, our 1099 income, and our investment income, and we're stacking an obscene amount of fiat. And I know people are going to say you need gold, you need silver, you need Bitcoin. There really is no alternative. There's really no suitable alternative to just good old-fashioned USD dollars. If you want to buy short-term treasuries, that's acceptable, but cash is really an option. It's optionality. You're buying optionality. It pays a really low interest rate, but you have the option to buy something when it becomes for sale, especially at a cheap price. So as bad as it is, it's a horrible, horrible thing to go through, is stacking an obscene amount of fiat, but you stack it up and you suffer and you endure and you build your list. So that's like the first part of the block and tackle. Then eventually something comes up for sale that's quality. It's a quality, durable, 300-year corporate bond with a brand. And you take that big fat piece of cake, that fiat, that huge stack of fiat, and you shove it all into that deal. And you rinse and repeat. You go back to blocking and tackling. Build your list, stack your fiat, wait patiently, suffer and endure. The money's made in the waiting, suffer and endure, and then stack it all back up and shove another big fat piece of cake into a deal.
So what's really interesting about that is what we'll discuss in a future podcast is what I think's going on is people are swapping. There's two ways you can make money in business. You can grow it through cash flows, and then you can sell it for appreciation. I think nowadays everyone's so focused on appreciation.
That's right.
That they forgot about cash flow. So to recap what you're saying, when people have identified these businesses, they're looking for businesses that save 30 cents on the dollar. So they make $1, they save 30 cents, right? Now they go, okay, I got 5 of those businesses. Now I'm waiting for a price to evaluate. Now that valuation is unique to each investor, as Howard Marks will talk about, depending on how you value it. There's so many different ways. So what you do is you value the business. So you have a plan. You know me, I'm big on plans, measurable results, action items, and a timeline. So the timeline's kind of hard to determine, but you just say, hey, I have 5 businesses, that's my measurable result, and when any of those businesses hit a certain value, I'm going to execute whatever cash I've stacked up. And you said suffer and endure. I'd like to add a little bit more effective language to that, so because I picture you in a sweatshop toiling. I look at it more of it's a patience, and for some people that is suffering and enduring. As you get used to it, you look at it as joy, because in the discipline there's joy, and as you're stacking, patiently waiting, you buy a phenomenal business at a great price, and then the upside is amazing, the cash upside is amazing. It's a win-win.
That's right.
When you stack cash and you wait for a phenomenal business. So tell us a little bit more about how do you determine, when you're building this list, how do you determine those businesses? How do you find these businesses where you're stacking your cash and then you're buying the business? Because for a lot of people that's foreign.
Yeah, so you said it, Warner. I'm gonna kind of like modify what you said a little bit with more specific accounting language. But you said it saves, so it makes $1 and it saves 30 cents. What we would say is we're looking for a business that has an operating margin of 30%. So you make $1, it has an operating margin of 30% or 30 cents on the dollar. That's where we get excited. So roughly a third. If you see a business that is making roughly 1/3 operating margin, you're getting us very, very excited. And now it's just a waiting game. It's just being patient. Now, so again, this is like the private businesses are not going to allow you to look at their books. So you got to have clues. One of the best things I ever did in my life was going to public libraries in actually Northwestern University of Chicago. When I was living in Chicago, Carnegie built an obscene amount of really quality libraries around Chicago. And they had something called the Value Line Investment Survey. So it's this big stack of all the publicly traded companies basically in the world. The G10 countries definitely, but it's just an obscene amount of data. And you could literally sit in the back of the library, ask for this thing. And this thing is like a subscription to this value line still today. It's like obscenely expensive. So it's really got to be like a private equity group or a family office or investment company or a library to afford one of these memberships. But most public libraries will have something called the Value Line Investment Survey, a big public library in a big city, and it's a gold mine of data. And what it will do is it will train you to be able to evaluate private business deals because you're looking at so many publicly traded companies and their finances are public. And you're going to start eliminating companies like the sheet steel business real quickly. And you're going to start finding, there's this pattern that keeps popping up. One, this is a durable company. These things have been around for hundreds of years. Some companies, you can go up to Europe and look at some of the oldest companies and start building this pattern of, okay, I see what's going on here. And then two, it's like operating income. Just flip through the entire value line, like 7,000 companies. And if you only looked at one line of the Value Line Investment Survey, look at the operating margin of these businesses and start writing down ones that are like above a third operating margins, above 33% or above 30%. And you're gonna have some really valuable intelligence to go apply to the private equity world.
So that's phenomenal information. Now, depending on who's listening to the podcast, you may have some investors who understand how to find that information. If you're not an investor and this is your first time at this podcast, or you're growing your investment knowledge, then what Mario's talking about is when you go in to the Value Line Investment Survey, you're going to be looking at like 10Ks, financials.
Yep.
And when you go in, and you can do this online too nowadays, you can go in, find a 10K, which is the annual report, and then you download it into a PDF. It's about about 100, 200 pages depending on the company. And you scroll down, about 2/3 of the document. That's usually where the financials are. And when you get to that 2/3 point on the document, you'll see the income statement. That's what you're looking for. So go look for the income statement and then go down and look at the operating margin. So tell us, what is an operating margin for people that are non-accountants?
Yeah, so you're taking advice from a guy that's taken like one or two business courses in accounting. So operating margin to me is we've paid all of our expenses. So we've paid off all the rent, we've paid all of our employees, we've paid the light bill, we've paid all the trucks, the gas. Everything is paid in the business, and now we have what's basically operating income or working capital, free cash flow. So it's pre-tax income. So we're not going to include things like depreciation, amortization, and taxes. So it's like in the investment world, you'll throw around EBIT, so earnings before interest and tax, and that is very similar to operating income. Generally accepted accounting principles. We could pull an accountant on here for one of our podcasts, and they probably break it down way better than I can. But it's basically capital that's available for the business to do things with. So a great business has a bunch of operating income left over at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. So they have an obscene amount of operating capital available to do really smart things with. Either they can go out and do another acquisition that they can just bolt right onto the company, or they can do some really smart research and development to bring a new product or service to the consumers.
Yeah, so man, this is so much knowledge. I'm always, I'm always thinking about the individuals listening to our podcast. And if you're an investor, you're loving this information right now. If you're a non-investor, you're going, man, I'm taking notes. I don't know what half this stuff is. So to break down operating margin even more, why, I'm going to answer this question. Why do you want to know the operating margin? Well, it tells you how much it costs you to operate the business.
That's right.
So what that means is, if you have a lemonade stand and you put that lemonade stand, let's say, out on the curb in your local neighborhood, how much does it cost you to buy the water, the lemons, the sugar, the cups, to run the stand, all those expenses that it takes you just to get that stand operational? That's your operating margin. When you take into account, just real simply in the future, let's just say you're dealing with taxes, no depreciation. You're just dealing with taxes. Taxes come later.
That's right.
What does it take? So if it takes me, let's say, $200, going off the same numbers we're going off now, it takes me $200 to operate that stand, and it costs me, and I make, at the end of the day, I'm doing these numbers in my head real quick, let's say I make, what would it be? What would be 1/3? Calculate it out. That would be, what would that be? If I made $400, that'd be 50%. If I made, I can't even do the numbers in my head, but anyways, let's just say, forget about the numbers you said before. If I made $400,
or keep it simple. Don't get too complicated here. Let's take $100.
Yeah, if I made,
let's take $100, buddy. Right, and we have to run a little lemonade stand, and we have a 30% operating margin. It means you've spent 70 cents on your water, your sugar, your lemons, and your cups.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keep it. We're two Marines.
Going the wrong direction on that one.
Let's go to Boston. We have a Marine buddy who lives up in Boston. He's more than a buddy to you. He's a friend of mine. He's a very, very close Marine to you. He's in the high-tech building business for pharmaceutical/medical companies in Boston. So he builds buildings for research/medical tech companies out of really Harvard, but MIT, etc. All his profits at the end of the year are in the machinery. Like, he's really lucky at the end of the year if he's scraping by on a 5% operating margin. Is that correct, Warren?
Yeah, so you're talking, just to make sure, you're talking about the construction company that builds the buildings, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, so in my past conversations with him, to give you an example of operating margin, a construction company is doing 5%. So they make $1, they're keeping 5 cents. If you look at, let's say, Oracle, database company, they make $1, they're keeping 30 cents. So all things being equal, for anyone listening to this podcast, it's all about, our whole goal here is to help you find value so you can put your money into that value. And when you put your money, every dollar you put in, we want you to make 30 cents, not 5 cents.
That's right.
And that's the reason behind that is you'll sleep better at night. You'll make more money, all things being equal. Your time value of money, it's worth something to you. So if you're doing 40 hours, you're working 40 hours here or 40 hours there. What do you want your money to make? 5% or 30%? Everyone's going to say 30%. This is the power of understanding how to evaluate business models. If you don't understand this, anyone listening to this podcast, it's going to be challenging for you to really exponentially grow your money and have this passive income. So when you're 50 or 60, you're just sitting in a hammock, chilling out, watching your money grow. This is how it's done.
Oh, you got options.
So
what
simple.
You want to do is you want to be able to get to a point where you get options in your life. Whether you want to sit on the beach in a hammock or you want to work on some, something benevolent, it gives you options if you can invest wisely. So I'm going to give you a Two Hands update. So we've got a buddy, and we're just going to call him Two Hands, his call sign. He's out here with me, let's say an undisclosed location in the Pacific. He's looking at purchasing a business. And he's looking right now at a very well-established tree trimming business and all the machinery and equipment. Are you still there, Warren? We got good comms?
I am, man. I just had you on mute for a second.
Okay, no worries. So,
go ahead.
Two Hands. We spent 2 days together this week, Monday and Tuesday. He's looking at potentially buying one of two businesses. One is a well-established, 30 years on the island, tree trimming business and a bunch of equipment, a bunch of trucks, big trucks, grinders, a bunch of equipment to be able to, bucket trucks to be able to go up and do palm trees, etc. And the other business is a pool business. Very simple, like 1 or 2 pickup trucks, and establish a route. I think it's about 70 pools that they have, a route and a brand. And we were talking through this, and I said, this is a no-brainer. This is like a no-brainer. You walk up to a pool, you pull 2 leaves out of it, you drop some chlorine tablets in it, and you charge them $25. Next pool. Tree trimming business. Man, a lot of equipment, a lot of beautiful trucks. All your profits are in all that equipment. And oh, by the way, one of your employees just dropped a tree on some dude's house. That's your liability. That's your tree trimming business. It was like a no-brainer to me. But I need to walk Two Hands through this and be like, you got to understand what's going to actually generate more income for you. If you grow that business, you can grow the tree trimming business. You'll have more depreciating assets in your yard. You'll have a bigger yard with more trucks that are depreciating. You can grow a pool business a lot simpler, and you're having more guys drop chlorine tablets into a pool and pull a few leaves out. And there's some maintenance. I think that there is some skill sets to the pool business to maintain the system, the chlorine system, the saltwater system, etc. To me, that's a no-brainer. But we're kind of negotiating right now with two hands.
Okay, so multiple things going there that I'm hearing. Number one, there's different levels of expertise. So you've been evaluating businesses for how long? How many years?
I got into this actually in high school with a couple of folks that I went to high school with.
So how many years?
I don't want to give away my age exactly, but it's more than 20 years ago.
Okay, so think about that. You've been doing this for 20 years. So your ability to pick up, to see what's going on is a lot different than two hands who's maybe, we're talking about 2 months, 3 months into this.
Well, again, we live a different life. So I try to think all day long. I literally try to spend my day reading, writing, and thinking. I'm trying to really spend a lot of time thinking through problems. And I've done that for years and years. Two hands, you maybe can figure out how he got his call sign. The guy is super busy all day long, 24/7. I mean, he sleeps 6 to 8 hours a night, but I mean, he's got a lot of things in his life, a young family, kind of two career paths that he's doing, where he's an employee, W-2 income. He's an employee for two bosses, and he's just super busy. He doesn't have a lot of time to think. I think anybody could figure this out. I mean, I don't believe in IQ. That's operating speed. There's guys with faster operating speeds and slower operating speeds, but anybody could figure this out. They just need some time to think through it. It's just people make decisions too fast. They don't slow the clock down. I think I've heard this analogy before. Like, you don't have to swing at every pitch. Like, this is a game where you get to look at pitches. You get to stand up there. Nobody's going to call you out. There's no rush to buy a tree timber business, and there's certainly no rush to buy a pool business. And I'm really going to try to steer him. Neither one of these businesses I want to put him in the Pacific Northwest. This guy's so talented and so hardworking and such an asset. I want to bring him to, let's say, Oregon. Does that work?
Yeah. So yeah. What I'd like to do for all the listeners is recap everything we've been saying, because what we've really been talking about is there's everyone's at different stages of their income earning potential. And those different stages, let's say for you example, you're making income in your current position at the Marine Corps, and you're making a certain amount. But over the past, let's say 20 years, you've been stacking your cash and investing in businesses. So you've been earning income, and you've been growing that income. Now, there may be people listening to this podcast for the first time that have just been earning income, right? So they're earning income. Now, some may not be saving it, so they don't have any income to invest, or some may have a huge cash cow that they're looking to invest. So we're all at different stages. Two Hands is currently at the stage where he's earning income, he's got too many expenses, so he's not saving, and he doesn't have the awareness to invest in businesses. So the whole point of this podcast is for anyone listening, whether you're an investor or a new investor, is step one, make money. Step two, stack that money, right? Step three, where do I'm a big proponent of everything we talk about. You know me, man. I like to distill it down. So step one, make money. Step two, save money. Step three, invest that money. It's really, really simple. Now, in between, it gets more complex, because saving money requires reducing expenses. Right?
It's just finding efficiencies. Basically, what it comes down to is like it becomes a game of like, how can I become more efficient? Like, how can I use these resources more efficiently? And then it's like a game of stacking cash. It's not a punishment. Like, you're not going through life like a miser. It's just a game of like, how am I more efficient? I've seen the Purple Merchant in your life find you guys airline tickets or hotel rooms, and it's like you got at your level, you don't really need to be shopping for hotel rooms. But I've watched the Purple Merchant, and she's like a ninja at efficiency. She's not cheap. She's not a miser. It's efficiency. How did you get to where you are in life? Both of you have that kind of thing wired in your brain. And I'm not going to give away, exactly my situation, but you've got it wired a certain way where we're just trying to, aggressively find efficiencies to be able to stack that fiat. And it's just a game to you and I.
Yeah. So, man, this is our first podcast, guys. For anyone listening, and what's amazing is throughout this podcast, I've already got ideas for about 500 new podcasts because we can go in depth on so many different areas, which we're going to do throughout these podcasts. So we're going to focus on, in the future on step one. How do you efficiently create more money, efficiently keep that money? Step two, how do you save that money? Step three, how do you invest that money? And then eventually, how do you protect it? I mean, it's real simple. So going back to Two Hands, the situation he's in, he has too many expenses. He's sending his kids private schools.
So that's $16,000 a piece. That's $32,000 a year that you could, which is okay. I mean, I think you need to do that in certain situations. However, he's got an attorney that he married that currently, let's just say is underutilized. And you're like, dude, you could be teaching those kids way more gravy. You could be ladling way more gravy into their life than school teachers with a bachelor's degree in education that are you're getting charged $16,000. I know there's more to it than just the knowledge that those kids get. I mean, there's a community, there's a network, but at his level, and this is a bright dude. This is a super, super bright, hardworking dude who makes good money. But at his level and where he's at right now, that $16,000 per child, that $32,000, could get him so much further. And he's got a opportunity with Eve to train those kids up, bring those kids up, and then you can maneuver. We could get Two Hands to the Pacific Northwest if we could convince him to be mobile with his education. You got to bring in some experts. Like, I'm not going to be able to teach people in my life Latin. If I need to get a Latin tutor or a French tutor, I think I got accounting down. It's like breathing. I need accounting in my life, but bringing in some expertise, getting him thinking about that gets him to the Pacific Northwest, and he can have more joy in his life, and he can have more freedom and build more options going to the Pacific Northwest with us than remaining here where I am currently located and suffering in a system where he's not really getting ahead every month.
Well, so I think what's interesting about what you're saying is you're talking about how to be more efficient. I think for a lot of us nowadays, I think in this current world, we've gotten lazy. And I don't mean that as a knock on anyone listening. It's including me. We've gotten lazy because of this current W-2 system, especially when I was in the military, where you work. It's kind of like, people don't realize this, but once you get through boot camp and you get through all the training, the military is pretty easy. You just do what you're told.
It's exceptionally easy.
And you make money. And what I think a huge pitfall is, you would be making much different decisions in terms of survival and efficiency if, let's say, we trade out the W-2 military job for you own your own homestead and farm. You'd be thinking, oh man, and it's in Alaska, so we're gonna up the ante on this one. So it's in Alaska, so you're thinking, I've got 4 months out of the year where I'm stacking up my root cellar, I'm getting my water ready, I'm getting my firewood ready. People in the current W-2 situation are not, because of the huge amount of debt out there, they're not thinking the same way. Right. Now that homestead, it's not like a direct relation with technology, because that homestead, that's a crap ton of work every day. But what we're talking about is the mindset where you're going, hey, I've got this extra cash. I'm not just going to spend it. I'm going to stack it like my root cellar. I'm going to stack it for another opportunity in the future. Maybe I'm trading with someone in my root cellar for some beautiful Alaskan halibut or a king salmon, right? But people are not thinking that way because they're lulled in this this idea of this lifestyle that that Eve wants right now.
That's right.
So what people do is they say, I want this lifestyle now. They don't ever ask the question, if I ran my life like a business or like a homestead, is it actually effective for me to have that lifestyle now, or can I create that lifestyle later? The best answer is create the lifestyle later. Right now, focus on taking whatever your whole household, take an assessment of it, take a analysis of it, and go, hey, is there anything I can cut out? Kind of like the minimalism movement. Everyone thinks minimalism is about going down to the smallest amount you can. That's actually not what it's about. It's about going down. For your style of operation, how do you reduce the most amount down to have all these effective items to do what you do? And it's different for each person, but people don't ask that question. When you do that, then what you start realizing, I'll give you a perfect example. It's like I pack, like my wife and I were on the road a lot, and I pack my car, and every time I pack, I go somewhere and I repack it, I end up finding more room. Why? Because I thought about it differently, and I pack more concisely, and now I have all this extra room.
Okay, but let's be honest. It's not a car. Let's be honest, Warner, with the folks. This is not a car. This is a expedition truck. So you've built something.
Oh yeah, sorry. I called it.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize.
Yeah, you're right. So let me recap. It's a Toyota Tundra truck with a basically dual cab truck with a camper, snug top camper on the back. Here's my whole point. I have like Milwaukee toolboxes, I have military boxes, and it's all packed a certain way. Every time I repack it, I think about it differently, and I pack it. I end up having more room. Why is that important? Do that with your life.
Yep,
Constantly
absolutely.
think about how I can improve it, and what you'll start finding is, you talk to me about this in terms of food. Hey, do you really require to eat that much food? No. I'm wasting maybe 10 to 20% of my food. Now I keep reducing that down. Okay, now I'm wasting 5. Ooh, I saved $100 by not wasting as much food, by not buying as much, and now I stack that cash. People aren't thinking that way. They're not thinking how I can. Yeah, go ahead.
Warner, you're breaking up a little bit. You hear me? You got me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Don't worry. Yeah. So every time you pack, so you guys move, you're kind of opening up to the audience a little bit. Every time you guys move to a new location, to another business deal, you're getting more efficient. And I would say that's basically the Pareto principle: is that you're going to get 80% of the utility out of 20% of the things you own. And you realize that when you roll from place to place, and you've got stuff spread out throughout America, let's say, in the Pacific, but when you roll to a new location, you're really grabbing the things that are absolutely essential in your life, and you're packing those very, very efficiently into your truck. And it's really a metaphor, or like it's really a philosophy for life. It's like, what do you need in life? 80% of the value is really going to come through 20% of your possessions, and you can really release a lot of stuff. There's people that have way too much stuff, and it clutters their life, and it holds them down. It doesn't allow them to get into a mind state or a physical state where they're able to go, yeah, I can go do that. I can go take that initiative or take that opportunity and bring value to it. I can add value. I can go there and add value. They're stuck both mentally and physically in this box where they're going, no, I got all this stuff and all this inefficiency in my life, and it prevents Two Hands and Eve from making moves that you and the Purple Merchant are able to move like much more efficiently. So I think that's how I kind of put it in my mind. Is like, I want to live a life where I can always look and evaluate value, and then seize that opportunity. And in order for me to do that, over the last 20 plus years, I've had to just live very minimalist. I've been a very minimal. I have minimal possessions and minimal things weighing me down. I don't have a lot of weights on my shoulder, so I'm able to move much faster. That's a huge advantage. I'm basically just able. I'm not better than Two Hands. Like I physically am a lower rank than him in the military, and that dude is really, really talented in some technical aspects of really complicated equipment. So I'll put it that way. Enough said. It's that I just can move faster than Two Hands.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And for anyone that's listening, it's your situation is specific to where you are in the world, to what job you're in, to how you're operating. It's my situation, Mario's situation, how we run an efficient. It's like having an efficient speedboat or efficient trawler, or let's say, what about an efficient offshore boat? How would you run that offshore boat efficiently? All those different boats require different loadouts. Talk to
You're
us
gonna,
about that a little bit.
yeah, you're gonna get up to point. So, I mean, just to explain it to folks, I'm very into offshore fishing. It's just one of my passions, and I'm in the process of kind of turning it into another business. Everything's a business in my life because I can, at a minimum, I can break even and write all my expenses off. So, to get up on plane, if you're dragging an anchor, theoretically or physically, I don't care how weak my motor is, and I'm not dragging an anchor. I'm going to get up on plane much faster than your boat. Yeah, you can drag an anchor all through the Caribbean. And it is a technique. It's going to slow your movement down incredibly. But I look at guys in their lives or men in their lives, and I go, man, he's got a lot of anchors dragging him down and holding him down. And it's not that I'm better than him or that I'm smarter than him or I'm harder working than him. No, not the negative. Two hands can outcompete me in a lot of arenas, but he's dragging a lot of anchors.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Um, oh man, so much to unpack on that one. So
You got to get
when
pull them
we
up. Okay, so you got to okay. Let's unpack that. So here's the steps. Here's what you got to do when you realize when you come to the reality. Man, I've got some anchors in my life. You got two options. You can pull up those anchors, or you can cut them loose. In two hands, it's not cutting loose. He doesn't have anchors. He has quality anchors in his life. He has really quality anchors in his life. He needs to get them on board. He needs to bring those anchors on board and get them on the same sheet of music. That's absolutely critical if you're going to be able to get that boat up on plane and compete.
yeah, so you brought up a really good point. Some anchors, maybe they're weights. Some you cut, and some you pull up and bring them on board. So
Yeah,
that's
at
that.
some
Have you
point, at some point, I've been in this physically. I've been in this space physically. I've put my anchor down in a spot, and it's just gotten tangled up, or it's been in rocks or something, a reef, so nasty I can't get it up, and it's too deep for me to dive, and it's not worth me to hire a diver to go down there and free my anchor. I cut it loose. I've tried to get it on board. I've tried to onboard the anchor, and after a few minutes, and I turn the angle, I get a different angle on this, do a different angle, I pull it back, I go into reverse, I go forward, different angle. I've tried 20, 30 minutes. I'm gonna go to West Marine and get a new anchor. Like, I'm gonna cut it loose. But there's some things you're like, nah, man, this is a beautiful anchor. I've had this for so long. I have an anchor in my life in North Carolina. Like, it was from the first boat I ever bought, and it's like, no, I'm gonna get a diver. We're gonna get some technical expertise. We're gonna bring in some experts. We're gonna free this anchor. Like, that's my strategy with two hands. Like, I'm gonna get them to Bend, Oregon, or I'm gonna get them to the Pacific Northwest. I gotta bring in some experts, and I gotta just get them free a little bit, like just a little bit. Just experience it for 30 days, two hands. Come out here for 30 days and just experience it. Just taste this for 30 days. I want to see him work. I want him to experience the work, and then he can come back here. And I think that's like expertise on an anchor. Like, sometimes you're not gonna, as hard as you pull on it, you're not gonna free that anchor. You got to bring in some pros that can go down there, deep dive down on it, and look at the situation, untangle it, and undo it, and pull on it from down. Once you're down on the face level with it, ground level with it, it becomes much easier to untangle that anchor. That's where I am with two hands. Other people in my life, unfortunately, like, I've tried, maybe I didn't value the relationship enough, or I didn't have that empathy. I didn't continue in that tactical empathy long enough, but I just said, I'm going to cut this anchor loose. But I see so much value in two hands, and he's so underutilized in his current rank and station. I just can't let him. I can't in good conscience cut that anchor loose yet.
Yeah, so you said a few good things that kind of drive into your language a little bit what you're talking about. It was really for past situations. It's not that you can't, it just wasn't workable. right?
That's
For those
right. That's right.
situations because they were ineffective. You were taking actions and working with people, and they were ineffective. Maybe on your part, maybe on the other person's part, because they weren't listening, or they just didn't get what you were saying, or they weren't in the right spot. Interesting point is you're talking about boats, and how I started the conversation off with there's like a speedboat, there's a trawler boat. Every boat's got a purpose, and the
That's
reason
right.
we're talking about boats, and the boat is really a metaphor for your life and making it more efficient. And the reason why we use a boat, well, it's because Mario loves boats, but also it's in a dynamic environment. Some days the sea is flat.
And some days you got to ride out a massive storm.
Yeah, yeah. So what we want to think about is, I learned this as a pilot in the military. You're planning for worst case scenario. You're not worrying about it. So with your own finances, really plan for worst case scenario. And what you'll find is when you get your boat streamlined, you get all your anchors in, your gunnels on your boat are nice, your
It's
everything's
clean, right? We don't have
everything's
ropes.
where it's
We don't have all the dock gear hanging off. You don't have your bumpers hanging off. You got everything stowed where it belongs in a place, and you're efficient. That boat's going to perform as best as it can. And there's faster boats and slower boats, but hey, that thing's going to. You're probably going to be able to ride out a few storms in life. But if you're dragging three anchors and all your bumpers are hanging off and your ropes are untangled, and fishing gear laid out, and it's a mess and it's hard to compete.
and we're gonna do a, you know what, man, we're gonna do a podcast. I'm gonna write this down for
Yes.
all our listeners and future listeners. We're gonna do a podcast on your life as a boat. I think it's gonna be a multi-point series. We're gonna break it down, how to run your life efficiently. There's a great lady named Marie Kondo who talks about getting rid of what she says is like, she's got this strategy that you use. Basically, let's say you go into your closet for everything you own. You go in your closet and you take out all your clothes and you throw them on the middle of the floor. I mean, literally in a pile. And then you start going through them. You go, hey, do I use this? Does this provide value? Do I love this? And what you find, which is amazing, when you do that, you get rid of 2/3 of your clothes. You put them in trash bags and you give them away.
Yes.
That's what we want to start doing with our lives over and over and it's called editing. In the design world, you're constantly editing down. It's a constant process to refine down. And that's when you do that with your life, and you make your life focused on, taking extra cash and stacking it, then you can, it's your life's efficient, then you can stack cash efficiently. And when you start getting this, it becomes like you start seeing like, hey man, I don't need 5 cars. I just need one good car. Or not
One
need.
good truck, man.
It's
One
like
good truck.
one good truck, one good knife, or a simple cell phone. Like I went to a flip phone because I was wasting so much time on social media, and it's been great. I have such a clear mind. All I do is text. I rarely text. All I do is call on that phone, and that's it. And I use my iPad for, communication, for social media. It's a game changer. That's how you look at your life. How do you iterate down, 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 down until you get this really cool, fast, clean, functioning boat?
I want to just share with the audience what you're going through. I know it's so raw, but I just want to say that you had a tragedy on Monday night come into your life, and you guys were able to get everything in order. I mean, like most people couldn't do this order. Get everything in order and get on the road and start heading to where you need to go sort some things out. And you could do that in a joy. You could do that in a space like if I said, "Hey, the opportunity opened up in Oregon. We need to roll up there. Let's roll up there." You could exit. You could be there in a day or two with everything you need to stay for 90 days. And that's just a really. I want to just tell you, just watching you over the last couple of days or listening to this situation develop, like it shows me like how efficient you are at your life, where you can get your family sorted out, get the pickup truck loaded up again, and get on the road to go sort out some a tragedy in your life. So and, it's
Yeah,
powerful,
thanks,
dude.
man.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's an example of a storm. A storm hit us. It usually
Yep.
takes us about. I mean, we literally packed up our whole apartment. 10 days left in our lease. Packed it up in basically about a day and a half. and then jumped on the road. It would usually go a lot quicker if we had, more forenotice, because we'd be
Right,
working through our
right.
food, but yes, no, I
A
appreciate it. And
storm hits you. Yeah, a storm hits you Monday night, and you're in Vegas tonight. Wednesday night, you're in Vegas on the road going up to Wyoming to sort out a tragedy, and that same ability, you could do that into a business deal, in Rock Springs, in Bakersfield, in Oregon, and it wouldn't take us long. We can move a lot more efficient than most folks.
Yeah, and what that segues into is our last point, which is how do you become a better version of yourself? Because when you're constantly on a quest to become a better version of yourself, you bring a performance to every area of your life, whether it's food, mind, body, mobility, business, and you keep iterating down, designing down, making it simpler. You start really becoming a more efficient individual, and it enables you to do the one most important thing in the world, and that is, you've talked about this a lot, the most important thing that people overlook so many times is your ability to think and create.
That's right.
That is number one. That in your mind, if your mind's not clear and you don't have a clear blank space, everything we're talking about in terms of getting efficient, in terms of growing your cash, in terms of investing in businesses, it's all for naught. It all starts with in the design world they talk about, it's like a beginner's mind. It's a childlike mind. Just you have a clean slate, and that comes from having a clean, efficient, smooth operating boat. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, my natural default position in life is a pessimistic dude, and that's made me literally physically survive a lot of storms. Let's say overseas community projects that I've participated in. I'm a pessimistic dude, and in order for me to get into a positive state of mind, what I have to do is suspend that pessimism briefly. I mean, you want some survival mindset. It's good for you. It's healthy for you, but to get into the space where you can find value and execute on value, you got to suspend survival mode and get into creative mode and start thinking about, could I buy this asset? I think about buying everything, Warner. I think about buying everything I interact with. I think, should I buy this as a business? Should I go into this business? And I have to suspend. I suspend like today's necessities. I go, I'm going to survive today. I'm going to get through today. I'm going to get into creative mode and get out and look at the future and say, could I run this asset? Could I afford to buy it? And could I afford to maintain it and run it? And would it build value? Would it build generational wealth for me and my family? That's how I look at it. And I think the last one is integrity. Is start your day off. This is just a practice, but start your day off with not lying to yourself or others. Like, try to go the whole day without lying to yourself, telling the truth to yourself, maintaining integrity with yourself, like being accountable to yourself. And then you start working on being accountable to others and telling your business partners and people you do life with the truth. Tell them about the hurts and the suffering, and also tell them about the victories. And have integrity. Walk with this certain integrity, and people are gonna want to do business with you, and they're gonna want to bring you into their life. So I'd say that's how I would say you can get into a better mind frame and a better state where you can execute if you can do those two things, which are suspend our pessimism or survival mode, and to walk with incredible integrity.
Man, there's so many. There's so many things.
Gravy. There's some gravy there. There's definitely some gravy.
I could break down those things for the next 24 hours.
I think we got to land the plane for tonight, but yeah, let's write some of these ideas down and we'll circle back.
So just to finish, just for all you listeners, we have about 7 minutes to finish. What Mario is saying is it all ties in to one thing, and that's creating a plan for your life. So you have a plan with measurable results. It means it's measurable in numbers. Then you take a certain set of actions, right? You're going to take some effective actions, some ineffective actions. It's going to come to a group of effective actions that support you in fulfilling on your measurable results, and you do that in a timeline. Now, why people, Mario's talking about running your day a certain way, the only way you're going to do that is if you take your word, which is your plan, and you put it on a piece of paper.
That's right.
Because if you don't, you're going to get caught And what Mario's talking about is the pessimism, which can be a valuable tool if it's aligned with a plan. And what Mario's talking about in terms of people wanting to work with you, there's so many people with stories and excuses and reasons. When you have a clear plan, it's like a speedboat. It's velocity. It moves at a rate, and people love to work with other people that are direct. Now, some people may be confronted by it, but at the end of the day, you can see the speed, because the speed comes from you, anyone listening, saying your word and executing on that.
It's predictable. That's a predictable dude. This guy shows up, he says exactly what he's going to do, and then he does it. And you start saying, okay, so it's predictable and it's consistent. He consistently shows up. He consistently tells us what he's going to do, and then he goes and executes on it. And you're like, it's predictable. I don't have to manage that dude. That dude is like he's a fire and forget weapon system. You put him on a mission. You give him mission type orders, and he says, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my intent. I'm going to do this. And then he actually goes and does that. You're like, oh, where can I get another one of you? Can we duplicate this guy? Like those guys have no problem. Like those guys are such, like, they're such value added to any organization. They have no problem finding, you can tell the worst economy, and there'll be a guy that's like, no, I want that guy to come with me. That guy's coming with me. And that's the kind of guy Two Hands is. He's just super busy right now, and he doesn't have a lot of time to think, but he's a guy with incredible integrity.
Yeah, I mean, well said. So, guys, for anyone listening to this podcast, this is just the beginning for me and Mario. We're going to be talking business. How do you evaluate a business? How do you streamline, make your life more efficient? How do you protect your wealth? How do you grow your wealth? How do you create plans that make things move that never moved before in your life, that Mario talks about, that your word literally becomes on a piece of paper a measurable result, and you can execute that with speed and velocity. We're going to be talking about all this stuff with the final goal of enabling you to live with passive income, so you can do what you love to do, which is think and create, and you're not worried about surviving each and every day.
That's right.
And that's what Mario and I are creating.
It brings so many more options in your life if you're not dependent on others. You've created this life where, through blessings, through friendships, through relationships, through intelligence and intellect, you're able to think about the next move. You're constantly thinking. You're looking at the chessboard. You're evaluating the chessboard. You don't have to rush. I don't have to make. This is not a timed move. You can sit there and look at the chessboard and go, okay, what's my next move? If I do that move, what's the move after that move? How am I sequencing the moves? Can I think through 3 moves? Can I think through 5 moves? Can I get out 10, 15 moves? With enough time, you can. If you sat down with a chessboard and you put any kind of chess situation out there, and you had the time and a piece of paper and a pen, you could get 15 moves. You could write down 15 moves. If you slowly looked at the chessboard, you could do the next 15 moves. If he does this, I'm going to do this. Write that down. It's just most people don't have that time, Laura.
Awesome, man. Mic drop. We're going to end it on that amazing point. Thank you for listening to the Red to Black podcast. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. If you would like to connect with us in the future, you can find us on LinkedIn. Simply search for Werner Minchel or Mario Parzino. Also, you can find a link to our LinkedIn profiles in the profile section of the podcast. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.